So many times we've been telling people from the Asian community that in as much as how many times they might want to try, they can never be white to white people. Now, listen this, a white man telling Asian Americans that despite the fact that they're going to be trying so many times that they might want to try, but they'll never be white to them. Because black people have always told you, now you gotta hear it from a white person himself trying to warn you and telling you that you're trying so much being anti-black, thinking that being anti-black will make you be white, but that can never be. It's high time you learn and understand that everything that you're doing, it's causing you, it's harming you, it's for your detrimental, it's not working for you. And now see, you've lost. You're not getting any white support. Black people have taken their support. So many times you disrespected black people, but they forgave you. You disrespected black people, but they still supported your business. You disrespected black people, but they still accepted you. But white folks have never done to you any, what we call even a bare minimum. They have never done to you that. You could disrespect a black person and get away with it. But hey, see, once black people have shut that door, of which they've already did. I mean, if they haven't, they're already doing it. Once black people have shut that door, it's a done. It's something which is done. But let me just ask you a question, Asian Americans. Are you getting any black support this moment? Why you can't get black customers visiting your stores? Are you getting any white support? That's just a question that I'm asking you. Let this be a lesson to you. That how many times you try, you can never appeal to a white person. And I think you just gotta learn it the hard way. Hey, brothers and sisters, listen to this advice from this white person. He's trying to warn, all these Asian Americans who are thinking that, let this be a lesson, that you can never be white. Let's just be a lesson. So let's watch the video. I'll be back.
So I've been seeing this online. I haven't meaning to address it. And, there's been certain Asian people on here. And I know that they do not represent the entire Asian community when I say this. So anyone in the Asian community that's been following what I'm saying, that supports what I'm saying, that supports rights and freedom and just, good vibes for all, this ain't aimed at y'all, so hopefully y'all don't take offense to this. But for those in the Asian community that are going after the black community, y'all need to stop. Okay? Y'all need to stop showing out for crackers, because they are not y'all's friends. Last time I checked, crackers are the only people that have ever dropped an atomic bomb on Japan. They're the only people that have dropped Agent Orange on Vietnam. They're the only people that did the My Lai massacre. And that's just off the top of my head. So, white people are not y'all's friends. They have never been. Crackers have never been y'all's friends. But the black community has had y'all's backs. Like, any rights y'all have is because of the rights that black America fought for. So, y'all need to really recalibrate who's on your side, who's had y'all's backs, and who's y'all's enemies. Because white people are not y'all's friends. They never have been. And unless something major changes in white culture, they're going to keep going and do the same shit they've always been doing. And y'all going to be catching the brunt end of it just along with everyone else that isn't them. So, just let y'all know.
Day the Latino, African American, Asian, and other communities realize that they share the same oppressor is the day we start winning. But the problem is our communities are divided. For Asian Americans and for African Americans, we probably have one of the worst relationships between any community.
Well, I bet you a lot of Asian Americans too in my experience, don't even realize that if it wasn't for the civil rights movement, there would not be 22 million Asian Americans in this country.
Thank you. What I have been trying to teach the Asian community is like, friends, do you understand that your success, your prosperity, your civil rights that you enjoy right now was paid for with black blood?
Asians are getting mad at black people because black people don't want to support their businesses anymore, and it's very ridiculous. Instead of getting mad at us, do better. Anytime I see a video of a black person going to an Asian business, there's always some racism, majority of the time. I'm not saying all of them are racist, but majority of them are racist. Why are you guys mad at us? Why don't y'all support each other? Sure, we shouldn't divide ourselves. Oh, why are we dividing ourselves? But there's only so much us black people could do when y'all don't like us for literally exist. I saw this person saying black people don't like Asians. Black people being glazing Asians. Y'all are the ones that be worshiping the white people and start hating us for no reason.
So many Asian Americans show their entire anti-black backside in videos and comment sections regarding the acquittal of Rick Chow and the call to boycott Asian businesses, and now the cross burning in Chicago has been a masterclass in how racism is narcissistic abuse, because so many ricecrackers are out here yelling and screaming as though black people somehow did something to us when all they want is to be left alone. So first of all, Rick Chow was acquitted. I don't know how anybody with a shred of intellectual honesty or morals can be at peace with that, but Rick Chow was acquitted. So for you to be making videos or going into black people's comment sections arguing as if they're the problem and you're somehow the victim because you feel unpopular in this moment because Rick Chow was acquitted is narcissism at best and malicious hatred at worst. As for the boycotts, Asian Americans are not entitled to black people's money, plain and simple. Business 101, provide quality goods, quality service, and treat your customers with respect. But if you've made a habit of providing subpar goods and subpar service and disrespecting your customers, rest assured, your business is not being judged on the basis of one Rick Chow. Your business is being judged for what it is. If you go into a black neighborhood and open a business and you've made a habit of treating black customers like they're the problem, pitching a fit and playing victim when your black customers say, "We won't be bothering you anymore," is narcissistic abuse.
The roots of anti-blackness handed down to the Chinese, formerly known as Chinamen by our mutual colonizer. Now she gets it. Roll it.
Chinese people have been up to so here I am. People in China have posted videos of themselves physically abusing black dolls. Like it's normal behavior, and they're just like, oh, this is what I do after a stressful day at work. Are you out of your mind? What have black people ever done to you? Have you ever met one? Have you ever met one and not acted like a complete weirdo around them? Have you actually ever had a black friend? Probably not. But today I wanted to talk about where a lot of the anti-blackness in Chinese culture comes from, specifically Chinese. First, there's our language. The way we talk about the sun and going out in the sun. 你不要晒黑 is something that every Chinese kid has heard from their parents. It literally means do not turn black. Colloquially, it means do not get tan, but verbatim, word for word, it means do not turn black. Oh yeah, and if you get too tan, your parents will say that you look like a black person as an insult. I don't want to hear any of you saying this to your kids. If you hear any of your friends saying it to their kids, say something about it. If your parents say it to you, say something about it. We can talk about protecting our skin from harmful UVA and UVB rays without resorting to racism. Not wanting to get skin cancer is race neutral, is not colorist, but saying you got so dark you look like a black person, that's really weird. And every Chinese person has heard it at least once. Chinese people as a collective have also learned anti-blackness from their colonizers, from our mutual hater. They think that shitting on black people will somehow make them whiter. I hear Chinese people in China and in the US just parroting the most harmful stereotypes that white people had just made up about black people. When white people aren't even saying those things anymore, they have learned neoliberalism. They have learned to say, I don't see color. They've learned to hide their racism at least a little better. And then Chinese people are out here doing the work for white people. Thought we were done with the century of humiliation. What are you guys doing? And this is hurting actual Chinese and black people inside our community. There are black and Chinese mixed people who y'all don't even consider Chinese because they have African ancestry.
Somebody needs to explain to me why is this? Why do they think they're white?
Okay, I wish I could stitch that video, but basically this person wants to know why so many Korean Americans try so hard to be white. Or in other words, why do so many Korean Americans try so desperately hard to be accepted by white people, and why do we think that we will benefit from white supremacy? And the answer is U.S. imperialism. It's always U.S. imperialism. Particularly in migration pathways that were carved out by military occupation. So let me explain. When I was really young, my mom used to always tell me, oh, if you go to Korea, if you live in Korea, people there are going to hate you. And I remember that confusing me so much as a kid because why? Why would they hate me without knowing me? And so I tried to, press her for an answer, and she would just say, oh, it's for no reason. They're just jealous that you get to live in the U.S. Flash forward, when I'm in school or college and I'm taking Asian American studies courses, classes in critical race studies, and I'm like, oh, I get it now. A lot of us already know the U.S. is not this benevolent country that takes care of its citizens, let alone immigrants, indigenous people, even its own veterans. And abroad, the U.S. terrorizes the global South through military occupation and other means, which includes Korea. You don't ever hear about or see people in Korea, Korean people in Korea, protesting U.S. occupation, but it's there. And there's still this dream or hope of both Koreas one day reuniting or being reunified. Very generally speaking, more recent Korean immigration into the U.S., or maybe I should say from the 1970s onwards, these are people who have the means to. They have the money, the capital, the resources, the social connections, and maybe even more importantly, they want to. They want to come and live here. So are the people who resent the U.S. for imposing themselves into the homeland, dividing the nation into two, and in the process separating families forever, are they going to want to uproot their lives to live in the country responsible for that pain and suffering and ultimately this loss of self-determination? Or are the people who sympathize with the U.S. and view the country as this welcoming, benevolent nation, as the saviors almost for coming into the war, are they going to be the ones to want to move and live here? The people that immigrated are probably people who sympathized with U.S. involvement in the war and who also subscribed to the idea of the American dream. And generally speaking, tended to be of the ruling class. And they get here, they either become disillusioned by it, the American dream, and start to question the ideas they've been told, or they hang on to it even tighter, and blame other groups of people, other groups of marginalized people for not being able to self-actualize this dream. This is just coming from my experience, observations, things that I've learned as a Korean American who has family members on both ends of the political spectrum. But, and again, I'm simplifying things a lot, but I also think that this general idea or explanation could also be applied to other East Asian and Southeast Asian communities. And if this topic interests you at all in the slightest, I highly, highly, highly recommend reading Haunting the Korean Diaspora by Grace Cho. It's a small book, but kind of heavy because it gets into some really dark stuff. But yeah, that's my answer.
I've seen a lot of Asian people get on this app and other apps claiming that Asian people have only committed those 2 crimes against Black children. And those 2 crimes that were committed were both anti-Black hate crimes. Okay, that's the real truth right there. And my question to them was, can you give me any incidences where a Black person harmed an Asian child out of anti-Asian hate crimes?
If Black folks boycotting Asian businesses is what it takes to fast-track Asian folks into deconstructing their internalized white supremacy and anti-Blackness, so be it. Boycott. I didn't apologize to the Black community in my video yesterday so that y'all would magically trust me or forgive Asian people suddenly. I apologized to hold my people accountable, because the Asian community owes an apology, and the Black community deserves to receive an apology. Is it enough? No. But is it 1 grain of rice in the direction of repair? I believe so. Trust can only be rebuilt through action, so I will continue educating Asian folks in my life, both online and in real life, to deconstruct the internalized white supremacy and anti-Blackness, because Black folks are some of the most soulful, caring people I know, and y'all deserve better.
Asian people should not feel offended when Black communities say that they are going to boycott Asian businesses and focus on Black-owned businesses. In response to Cyrus Carmack Belton's murder, there is literally nothing that I can really think of that can really mitigate that other than just depending on their own communities. If Asian communities cannot prove themselves to be safe spaces for Black communities, then of course they're going to go where their community is more likely going to be safer. I am not going to sit here and pretend that anti-Blackness does not run deep into Asian communities and that is not still very much apparent in today and the way that the conversation about Black people in Asian communities exists. There is no way that we can just ignore it, which is why as an Asian person, you should not feel offended when Black people, Black communities are trying to find solutions for things that unfortunately Asian communities just fall flat on. They fall flat on their solidarity. We saw that with like our 2026 elections. We fall flat. We need to allow these communities to build their own, because we have showed them time and time again that we cannot be dependent on for them. And that is why, as an Asian person, I cannot feel offended for any reaction that came out of the not guilty verdict.
I'm noticing white people join this conversation. And by conversation, I mean the conversation that my community and the Black community are having right now in regards to what happened to Cyrus and how Cyrus was murdered by someone in my community. And I just want to say, I am happy that y'all are on the right side of history, because great. But also, I am not willing to let y'all join this conversation and do what y'all did during the Stop Asian Hate thing. Because the truth of the matter is, what happened during Stop Asian Hate was that the majority of the people who were harming my community were white people. And y'all chose to scapegoat the Black people. Y'all did. And created tension between my community and the Black community. And now you're hopping on to this conversation, this issue that your community created, by the way. Your community created this fucking system. And you have the nerve to come into this conversation and try to scapegoat Asian people, try to make it seem like it's all of us who harm. When the reality is the majority of the people in your community are genocidal maniacs.
Be honest about acknowledging anti-blackness among Asian Americans, especially when the call was coming from my own house, so here we go. I first became aware of my mom's anti-blackness when I started kindergarten, and it mostly centered around avoiding interactions with Black people and not allowing me to be exposed to anything that she considered Black culture. So if we were walking and she saw a Black person, she would pull me closer to her. If we were in the car in a parking lot and saw a Black person in the parking lot, she would make a point to lock the doors, and I wasn't allowed to listen to rap or Michael Jackson or Tina Turner. And she was hypocritical about that, because I wasn't allowed to listen to Cyndi Lauper or Madonna either. She would call it trash music and say that it was going to be a bad influence. But if it was a white artist, it was not racialized. It was only when it was Black artists that it was racialized. And another thing that I think is kind of typical is, as a musician, there were a lot of Black artists whom she respected and enjoyed, but she would always say that one Black artist is the exception, the rest are bad influences. When I went to school, if I came home and said I made a friend, her first question would be white or Black. And that drove me nuts, because in preschool, I dealt with a lot of bullying and discrimination because of being Asian, so it didn't make sense to me that she wanted me to turn around and do that very same thing to my Black classmates, whom she knew nothing about, on the basis of their skin color. And when I wouldn't stay away from my Black friends, she would resort to making up justifications as to why it was harmful for me. She would say they're going to hurt me and they're going to be a bad influence because they fight and they swear and they're not good students. And of course, none of that was true. And in my household, it was not physically or emotionally safe to voice your opinions, but about that I would, because it literally angered me. And then she would resort to physical violence. And that sealed the deal in my mind that prejudice is purely irrational, because none of her claims had any basis in reality, and that's why she had to resort to physical force. Unfortunately, I think that when parents resort to intimidation and violence to instill prejudice in their children, a lot of times it works. But I was very lucky, because the principal of my elementary school was a Black woman who implemented a program called Students Educating Each Other About Discrimination. And that wasn't centered on racial discrimination, it was about discrimination in general. But in that program, we learned to have discussions about discrimination and to identify it and disrupt it. Which at that age just means if you witness discrimination, say it's discrimination and articulate how you know that it's discrimination. So from learning that very powerful tool at school, I was able to identify that what my mom was doing at home was wrong. Additionally, the principal was a Black woman, so I had a Black woman in a position of leadership as a role model. And in my school district, she wasn't a token. They really valued Black leadership, from teachers to administration, guidance counselors, all the way up to superintendents. And so I was surrounded by Black role models who made me see that reality did not line up with what my mom was trying to teach me. The straw that broke the camel's back was sometime around the ages of between 7 and 9. I was planning a birthday party, and I told my mom that I want to invite my friend Keisha, which I knew was going to be an issue, but I thought I would try. And she said no, and I said, fine, then I don't want to have a birthday party, and she made me have the birthday party. So now that felt like that's not only cruel to me, but that's cruel to my friend Keisha, whom you don't even know because you refused to meet her. Shortly after that, we were walking in the mall, and my mom did this thing that she often did, which is she sees Black people minding their own business, and under her breath, she mumbles a derogatory term in Chinese for Black people. And I remember I pulled back on her hand and faced her, and I said, they are not doing anything. You don't know them. The next time you do that, I am going to go up to them, and I'm going to tell them what you said. And believe it or not, the fear of exposure by me actually made her tone it down, and she stopped doing that in public. Fortunately, my mom did not live and die that way. In later years, she came around to seeing and later openly admitting how wrong she was. In her older age, one of her best friends really was Black, and my mom admitted to her friend what her previous attitudes had been and why. And from those conversations, I was able to gain some insight as to what my mom's motivation was for her anti-Blackness. Because I think most people feel, since Asian Americans also are harmed by white supremacy, how does it make any sense for Asian Americans to be anti-Black? My mom spent most of her young life in Hong Kong when it was under British occupation, and then in the 1950s, she came to the United States when she was 16 years old. Generations before my mom, her family had been living in and doing business around Shanghai, Hong Kong, and Macau, which were French, British, and Portuguese occupied areas. So she was heavily indoctrinated into anti-Blackness in Hong Kong, where she had no exposure to Black people that would have shown her a different.
Hello brothers and sisters, welcome back to the channel. I'm hoping that you are doing great from wherever you're watching this video from. It now makes sense. I think it's starting to make sense to them that they can never be white. And that's the brutal message that they need to have. Because at least with that, they gotta learn how to treat other people. They gotta learn how to deal with other people. The world doesn't revolve around you. And I think that's what Black Americans are trying to do to you. Because once Black people shut that door, it's gonna be a hell of a ride. Because now you're gonna need to adjust yourself. You're gonna need to find ways of, supporting yourself. You're gonna need to find ways of doing things differently, because you used to depend on Black people for your businesses to thrive. But you realize that that's not gonna be working as it used to be. And so it becomes so much difficult. Right? So Black people have always stood with Asian people, business-wise, political-wise, social-wise. When anti-Asian protests were going on, Black people stood with Asians, especially during the, cops assaulting Asians randomly, the Stop Haitian Hate campaign. We all saw Black people on the streets fighting for all these groups of people. We've been seeing all these things. The Stop Asian Hate. This is something that Black people have stood with all these other group of folks, Asians to be specific. But so many times, look at how Asian Americans have always paid Black people. Yes, you know the answer. I think one of the biggest lessons that these people will never have is to just learn how to treat people very well, because that's what Black people are trying to ask them. The anti-Blackness in the Asian community is that one thing that has made Asians be where they are right now. If only they could have learned, if only people from the Asian community, If only people from the Asian community could have learned how to deal with black people, things wouldn't have escalated to be where they're right now. But I think this is just a major lesson that all these groups of folks are learning, and they're getting to see the reality of things. You disrespect a black person, they take their money. And now look, it's affecting you big time. You have nowhere to go back to. You have nowhere or nobody to lean on. That's just a message to you, is that put respect to the ant that feeds you. Right? I was going through a couple of comments in looking at what people were saying in regards to all this. And I have to admit that I really like some of the comments that are here. Somebody say that I think Asian Americans need a quick history lesson to what happened to Asian Americans during World War II. Round up and put up into camps, or just general aid campaigns against them by white people. These folks don't learn. They don't just learn. Honestly, I don't think FBAs gives damn about any of the apologies from non-melanated people. So keep that energy. The reign of white supremacy is coming to an end, and you all feel it. It's true. The world is feeling the shift. They are feeling all these changes that are happening to them, and they are getting to see the reality of the matter. Their products are toxic anyway. Their hair and the nails, they did not wear fake nails or wigs, but they sell the toxic to black Americans and the continent Africa. Let that sink in. We have a right to spend our money where we want, and we will. It will be black owned. They do not shop in no black business, and occasionally they shop white. I told you, and remember I told you, you can try to be white in as much as you want. There is no problem with that, but get to learn one thing. The psychology of white folks is that you are not white. You are just a person that once they're done using, you're gonna be just like anybody else that they ever used. That's what's up. That's who you are going to be to them. And you better accept that, because that's the reality of the matter. That's how things are gonna be happening to you. My black American ancestors' blood paved the way for all non-white groups of every color, except Native Americans, of course, including blacks to be here. All of them. I personally didn't, but my ancestors did. Don't ever forget that. We should accept this. We shouldn't accept disrespect from any group. Never, never, never. Right. I really don't know what you'll think about this. I really don't know what you'll think about this. Tell me. What do you think about this?